At the beginning of the 2004 movie Troy, there is a scene where two Greek armies meet on a battlefield. But instead of fighting, each force elects a champion who will determine the victor for the battle. The eventual winner is the mythical figure of Achilles, a man whose body is invulnerable to all damage except for his heel. With the recent release of Theros Beyond Death and the new magic analogue of Achilles, known as Haktos the Unscarred, I think it's high time we make a commander deck that invokes that scene from the movie of Troy. Let's get to this brew, Haktos the Exalted. This is a $100 budgeted build for the deck, as determined by archideckt's price measurement using Card Kingdom as the store. By buying played cards and shopping around, this deck could come in well under budget. This price was measured at the time of the video and may fluctuate over time. With that out of the way, let's get to it. First up, let's have a look at Haktos. He's a 4-mana legendary creature human warrior that costs white, red, with a power and toughness of 6/1. This may seem quite terrible, but like the great Achilles, his abilities make him almost untouchable. When Haktos enters the battlefield, you randomly pick 2, 3, or 4, and Haktos gains protection from all spells and permanents not of that cost. Being an almost invulnerable warrior, Haktos likes to attack, and therefore has to attack each turn if able. At first glance, you might want to turn him into a Voltron commander. However, because he has protection, not hexproof, it means all your spells also can't target him, which makes it hard to increase his strength with a traditional Voltron build using enchantments and equipments. Let's step back to the Troy movie, where we have the champion of a large army that goes forth and fights for them. This is really well represented in Magic by the mechanic of Exalted. As Haktos is already a 6-power creature and is almost unblockable, we want to get him to at least 7 before he attacks so he can kill players in 3 hits with commander damage. Therefore, we want to run almost every Exalted creature we can get our hands on, and use Anthem effects to give him that extra bit of boost. So, what are the Exalted cards we want to run in this deck? Obviously, Cathedral of War, it's exalted on land, which is priceless for this kind of deck. Acrasian Squire, Goblin Champion, Avian Squire, Knight of Glory, which also comes with protection from black, just in case, Sigil Paladin, Guardians of Acrasa, Sublime Archangel, which gives every creature exalted, which can allow for a massive blowout, Battle Grace Angel, which has exalted and can give lifelink to exalted creatures, and Angelic Exaltation, not actually exalted, but works similarly and will stack with creatures that already give Exalted as well. The only Exalted card we don't run is the enchantment Angelic Benediction, as it acts just like a creature anthem, and we have better ones than that. That said, we should cover some of the anthems we're running. We have Always Watching and Radiant Destiny, which gives Haktos a small buff, along with Vigilance, making him an amazing blocker. Then we have Glory of Warfare, +2 buff for attacks and +2 for defense, solid for its mana cost. Cathar's Crusade, which will let us put counters onto Haktos as we play more creatures. True Conviction, which gives Haktos double strike and lifelink. And lastly, we have Archetype of Courage, which gives Haktos first strike, making him even harder to block. Along with these anthems, we can use the mechanics Soulbond and Bolster to increase Haktos' power as well, as they don't target. For that, we have Silverblade Paladin to give double strike, Stonewright to give Haktos fire breathing, and Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit. Anafenza will bolster whenever a creature enters the field, and because Haktos has such low toughness, he'll often be the one that gets bolstered, giving him a +1/+1 counter. So, we've got all these ways to make Haktos bigger, but what else does the deck do? It can't just rely on him to kill everyone. Since we're already running a bunch of Anthem effects, it only makes sense that we then dive into tokens to fill out our board. To that end, here are our token generators for the deck. First we have Anax, Hardened in the Forge. New from Theros, Anax will turn our creatures into Satyrs when they die, making board wipes less painful. Then we have Reverent Hoplite. As our deck is mostly white, we'll have a high devotion to white, meaning when he enters the battlefield we'll make a bunch of 1/1 soldiers. We have Captain of the Watch to give all our other soldier tokens vigilance and a boost, along with making a few when she enters. Lena, Selfless Champion. She creates a few tokens on entry and can help protect them during a board wipe. Unfortunately, she can't help Haktos due to his high power. Thraben's Standard Bearer, which can be used as a discard outlet to make tokens. We have Martial Coup, which is a creature board wipe, which also makes tokens afterwards. Finale of Glory, which can create a bunch of soldiers or angels in the late game. And finally Assemble the Legion, which is an enchantment that makes more and more soldiers each turn. Now that we've covered the cards that define the deck, let's talk about the cards that make it work. The mana base is fairly simple. 14 plains, 7 mountains, and all 6 coloured cycling lands for draw support. We need a good density of colour and fixing for our commander, so this restricts our other land choices somewhat, especially on a budget. The utility lands we're running in this deck are Cathedral of War for Exalted, Temple of Triumph, the Boros Scryland, Even though it comes in tap, the scry ability can help fix our draw. Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to make sure we can hit the colours we need. Opal Palace, which can make Haktos bigger when we cast him. Scavenger Grounds to exile everyone's graveyards. We don't use ours, so we should be running this. And lastly, Memorial to War. This is our land destruction land, and was chosen to fit the budget of the deck. The fact that it produces red instead of colourless also isn't nothing. Moving on to the ramp in the deck, as a Boros deck we are mostly reliant on artifacts for our ramp, so here's what we're running. Boros Signet, Boros Cluestone and Boros Locket, Sol Ring, Mindstone, Star Compass and Talisman of Conviction. Now the reason we run the Mindstone, the Cluestone and the Locket is for the card draw. Normally these wouldn't be worth it in a commander deck, but in Boros you basically take whatever draw you can get, and ramp that can draw later in the game is perfect for this. Along with these mana rocks, we have Burnished Heart to find lands, and then the all-star Smothering Tithe. While it's pricey, its power in the format makes it invaluable for the deck. Lastly, we have Myriad Landscape to help us ramp as well using lands. So, moving on to card draw, we have Mentor of the Meek, who will trigger on most of the creatures that enter the battlefield, including our tokens. We've got Magus of the Wheel, which will give us a wheel effect when our hand gets empty. We're running Faithless Looting to draw 2 and discard 2, we can flash it back to do the same. It's great for any deck and there's a reason it's banned in Modern. We've got Skull Clamp, which will allow us to turn those tokens into card draw. This is a go-to in any deck that's generating tokens, and will be an all-star draw engine for this deck. Then we have Bygone Bishop, which works similar to Mentor of the Meek, but only affects creatures we actually cast. We have Sunset Pyramid, which can act as a simple draw engine. By the time the counters run out, we generally have the cards we need anyway. We have Tome of Legends, a new artifact from Eldraine. It enters with a page counter, and every time our commander enters the battlefield or attacks, it gets another page counter. We can then use these page counters to tap it and draw a card. A perfect draw artifact for a commander like this, since we'll always be attacking. Lastly, we are running almost every cycling land in the Boros colours. While this can affect our starts, because they're all tap lands, being able to cycle them away in the late game can significantly reduce the amount of dead draws we get. Boros will always struggle for good card draw sadly, especially on a budget, but this suite of cards should prevent us from having the dreaded turn 5 stall out. So let's move on to removal then. Generous Gift will allow us to deal with basically anything, while True Love's Kiss and Crush Contraband can exile pesky artifacts and enchantments. And By Force can be used to wipe out everyone else's artifacts. For creature removal, we have Swords to Plowshares for targeted removal, and Starstorm, Mass Calcify, Martial Coup, and Chain Reaction for board wipes. And the best thing about the red board wipes is that they are unlikely to kill Haktos, as his protection will prevent the damage from hitting him. As stated before, we have a Memorial to War to handle problem lands, and although the deck is light on graveyard removal, we do have a Scavenging Grounds to get rid of everyone's graveyards. So we can destroy the opponent's stuff, but how do we protect our own? Haktos is fairly well protected, but even he can use some help. We have Brave the Elements. This gives all our white creatures protection from a colour. As it doesn't need to target, this will protect Haktos as well. We then have Make a Stand, which will make all our creatures indestructible, protecting them both from board wipes and Haktos from having no good attacks. And lastly, we have Lena, Selfless Champion, who we can sacrifice to protect all our other tokens. So after covering all the main themes of the deck, and then how we support it in general, let's talk about some of the additional things I've added. We have a small life gain package with Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant. These can help weather a few hits from our opponents and give big life swings if we generate a ton of tokens. We have an Anger to potentially give Haktos haste if we can get into the graveyard. We have a few discard outlets, but we mostly rely on playing him out and letting him die off the battlefield. The deck doesn't really use graveyard recursion for anything, but who can deny the power of running a Sun Titan just to get back a few important pieces? Most of our decks 3 CMC or less, so the Titan will always have good cards to fetch for us. For flavour, we're running the Akroan War, which is a new saga from Theros Beyond Death, which allows us to steal a creature on the first turn, screw up our opponents for the second, and then destroy everything on the third. As this saga is a reference to the Trojan War, the story Achilles is from, it only feels fitting that we run this in this deck. We also have Wild Ricochet to hold up and try to steal an opponent's big play. Maybe we can disrupt some of their removal and protect our board, or maybe we can even steal a turn if they try to cast an extra turn spell. This is just a fun card for disrupting our opponents and potentially getting some cool value. Lastly, we have the big money card for the deck, and it's one that can potentially pull a win from nowhere while giving us protection. Gazella, Blade of the Gold Knight, will double damage to our opponents while halving damage to us. This is the type of card that can play to finish off opponents, and if she sticks around, make it very hard for them to hit back. At $8, it's the most expensive card behind Smothering Tithe, but a great inclusion for the deck. So finally, let's talk about how this deck will actually win a game. Haktos can quickly kill an opponent with commander damage, either with 3 hits while being exalted, or more quickly with effects like Gazella, Angelic Exaltation, or Double Strike. It may be entirely possible to hit someone once, and then kill them the next turn by playing one of these spells that pump Haktos up. Haktos is an aggressive Boros commander, and such will probably find more success in a 3-player game rather than a full 4-player pod. Like a poison deck or a generic Voltron deck, he may be able to take one player out quickly, but then struggle to finish off the table if there are multiple players left to deal with him. Therefore, outside of Haktos, we can also generate a large amount of tokens and potentially make them very big using our anthems. By using some life gain, we can hopefully stick around until the late game, where we can eliminate the final player with one big swing. Due to the budget restrictions, this deck does not run any infinite combos, but with a way to generate infinite combat steps, Haktos could very quickly sweep a table. Therefore, let's discuss some of the potential upgrades to this deck if you wanted to push the budget. The current mana base is still quite cheap. However, by running untapped dual lands such as Sacred Foundry, Inspiring Vantage, Clifftop Retreat, Sunbaked Canyon, and Battlefield Forge, it would really smooth out the colours you can generate. Boros Charm is an obvious inclusion for the deck, as it can act as both removal and protection, and was only cut to meet the budget. Aurelia the War Leader and Aggravated Assault can give you additional combat phases, allowing for Haktos to kill off players more quickly. We could run Planeswalkers such as Elspeth Knight Errant and Gideon Alair Zendikar, which can make tokens and give buffs. And lastly, with a lower cost removal package, Sunforger would be an all-star for this deck, and would be a great way to find answers to the problems in our games. There's a lot of directions you can push this style of deck in. Instead of soldier tokens, you could go with goblins, or do away with the tokens altogether and push for a more straight Voltron build. Haktos is a very strange commander that will always grab people's attention whenever you pull him out. So there you have it, a Haktos Exalted deck. Build out your army to the board and then send forth your champion to strike directly at your foes. For many has sought his weakness, all have failed. So hey, my name's Andrew, and this is a new Magic channel that myself and my friend James are putting together. Not sure exactly what the focus for the channel will be yet, but the current plan is to put up deck tech videos like this whenever we feel inspired by something, along with paper Magic recordings using CGI to improve the watching experience. To that end, a like or a comment would really help us out, along with sharing this video with anyone you think that might be interested. Thanks for watching, and good night.